Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast Offseason Preview Series, where Bryce Simon and I dig deep into every NBA team's summer and the big decisions that they have to make. Bryce, we're going to talk about the Washington Wizards today, but first, thank you all for subscribing to the Game Theory YouTube channel. Nearly 50,000 of you. We're closing in on that number. We're up over like 43, 44 at this point. By the time the Washington Wizards offseason preview will go up, keep hitting that subscribe button. Keep hitting the like button. We appreciate you guys come to hang out so much. Thank you all for rocking with us and making this offseason preview series such a success. Bryce, let's talk about the Wizards now. The Wizards have like kind of a quiet offseason forthcoming to me. It feels like they made a lot of their big moves at the deadline in order of kind of taking up the cap space that they had going into next year. I will be interested to see if they're able to kind of take on any more deals in order to continue to accumulate assets. But Michael Winger, Will Dawkins, those guys seem to have like a pretty real sense of what they're building and how they're going about building it. And really, it's just going to be continuing to accumulate young talent is what it feels like.
Yeah, I agree. I like the approach they've taken. They finally just, broke it down. They had all the first round picks last year, and, we'll still see kind of the ceiling and what all of those guys end up being. They have 2 first round picks this year, a second round pick, I think 3 in the top 40-ish or something like that. And so I think it's still just continuing to build out that talent, acquiring long-term assets along the way. And then also one thing I've learned from going through a rebuild over the last 5 years, covering a rebuild, I guess I didn't go through it, thank God, is you have to have the right vets and archetype of players to make sure you're getting the most out of your young players. So like that would be the one thing with the veterans with the Wizards is make sure you have some veterans around that at least let Alex Sarr get to his ceiling. It allows you to get real data collection on him and Bilal Coulibaly and Bub and everybody else down the road. And so like, make sure you don't completely clean house to where you're only relying on them and you're losing games without collecting any data or putting them in positions to be successful.
I actually think this front office has done a really good job of that too.
I don't disagree. I just always like to emphasize that point.
Completely agree. Like, Jordan Poole, from all reports, was like a really good vet for these young guys this year. Chris Middleton's like an amazing vet. And if I'm Middleton, I'm probably pretty good to stick around on 35 million this year. If only because like, if I'm there the whole year or if I get traded, mid-season, like I don't want to buy out if I'm Middleton, right? Like I want to keep myself on that 35 million because it just opens up a world of options for me after this season in terms of like a sign and trade potential. If I'm, Marcus Smart, maybe he's somebody that could move, maybe not. We'll talk about that maybe in a minute, but like Middleton particularly is a guy that's dealt with some injury stuff. Like it might make sense to like just kind of be the vet on this team, kind of like how Al Horford was on that Oklahoma City team a few years ago, and then go figure out the spot next offseason where you can go be like a real rotation, like impact player somewhere in your mid-30s.
The thing with Jordan Poole, and I've come down on Jordan Poole at times, but how he makes sense on this team to me is who else is going to be the number one scoring option on this roster? And I know, like, I'm sure Wizards fans can get frustrated at times with his shot selection and some of the stuff he does, but ultimately, not making Bilal do that every night, not making Bub try to do it, not making whoever try to do that. I don't think it's a bad thing, Sam. You know what I mean? Like, let him go take all of that usage, play as this number one option role because you don't have anybody else that needs to be taking on that role anyway. Would you like it to be maybe a little bit differently? Sure. But I'm okay with it because of that. I will also say they've taken a couple chances on some young-ish type players. Like they took the chance on Sadiq Bey with the ACL injury. And I know, Sadiq was a little bit older coming in already, but it's like Sadiq had a really good rookie season in Detroit. So can he get back to at least like come in, knock down shots? They took the chance on AJ Johnson, who never made sense in Milwaukee anyway, but in an organization where they're going to give him reps or can give him reps and allow him to grow. I think that could be one like 3 years from now. We're like, hey, remember when they got AJ Johnson in that deal? And then now he's coming off the bench in their rotation. So I think they've taken some chances on younger players too, younger-ish players, injured players, that even if one of them turns out, you're like, hey, that was smart process overall.
Yeah, Sadiq Bey, in 230 games in his first 3 seasons, averaged 14 points and 5 rebounds and shot 36% from 3, right? Like, it's not a bad guy to have around. Hopefully coming off of injury, he ends up being a capable player still. You never know, but we'll see, right? Like, I really like that in terms of just taking a shot on him. Keyshawn George, like, I think worked out as well as he possibly could have last year for Washington. I'm still very skeptical of the offensive upside. I just don't think he's, quite athletic enough to get rim pressure, and the jump shot has just never been quite consistent enough for me if you go all the way back past the Miami years. But like, was really impactful as like a defensive playmaker at times for them. That was a, decent swing to me in the 20s. And then, Bub Carrington, especially later in the year, I thought was fairly useful and like fairly impressive as a potential, maybe he can be your starting point guard of the future guy. I really loved Bub last year in the draft. I thought getting him at number 14 was a huge win for them organizationally. And, over the last like little stretch of the season, I think he started to finally show what he's capable of. And oh, by the way, played all 82 games. Alex Sarr, showed real flashes this past season.
Yep.
There were moments where he was incredible. He's still a 7-footer that shot 39% from the field, which is a whole other issue, obviously. But defensively, like, the movement skill is very clearly there. There's a lot of like interesting, talented pieces. I don't know if they have the guy yet that they're building around. And ultimately, it feels like the centerpiece is the next key component for them. Maybe they can find that guy at number 6. I'm a little bit skeptical, but like, it's not impossible. They can find him at number 6. But I like what they're doing. And again, we talked about this with the Charlotte offseason preview, but this organization is not a small market organization necessarily. In Washington, like, they've at least shown a willingness at times to pay for what they have on the roster. But by and large, what I think is the biggest key here for the reason that lottery reform has like completely failed is just what's happened with the Wizards. Like, they win the lottery in a down lottery year. So they, or they finish second in the lottery. I'm sorry. So they get Alex Sarr, and they've drafted like fairly well. Besides that, they've drafted Bilal Coulibaly, who I think is a great, potential, like probably will be a long-term starter in the NBA. They draft Bub Carrington, who I think looks pretty good. I did not really like Keyshawn George, and I think that they hit that, honestly. Like, I think that he looks like a potential rotation player if he can find a way to make shots and get like some easier shots here and there. Obviously trade for AJ Johnson, right? And he looks like a really interesting upside swing at the very least. But they just don't have the guy is the issue. And it's just really hard to find the guy when you're in the middle of a rebuild if you don't give the worst teams good picks at the end of the day. Well, and it just does not, it does not lead to a situation where there's parity. It leads to a situation where Houston and San Antonio continue to get these high level picks when in reality, they probably don't need them, right?
And the Wizards continue to quote unquote tank because they need a chance at a high pick.
It doesn't stop tanking. That's right.
That's been our biggest argument against this, right? Is it hasn't actually stopped tanking, like supposed to be the reason to stop it. I mean, think how much different. I don't think we're going to have a negative tone in this offseason preview, Sam. I really don't. I think we're very interested with this team, but think how much different our tone would be if they did have the number 1 pick. And I'm sorry, Wizards fans, to do this to you. I truly am. But if they were about to get Cooper Flagg or even Dylan Harper, we would be having a much different conversation because it'd be like, hey, they're about to draft in Cooper, definitely the face of the franchise. And in Dylan, at least a chance at the face of the franchise. And instead we're well, they have 6 and 18. Like at 6, let's go ahead and just swing for the fences, even if we don't really believe in it. And then like, it's happened in the teens before for other teams. So maybe at number 18, we draft Noah Essengay and he turns into a star. So Essengay probably goes higher than that, but you know what I mean? It's like, it would be a different conversation. And I think it'd be a team we'd say like, hey, start moving this forward a little bit. Cooper's coming in. He's a star right away. Bilal's in this, like, and instead it's, you know, what's the biggest swing at number 6? Like take a swing on Derek Queen and hope the defense gets figured out. And so it is tough for them. I feel bad for Wizards fans.
I do too. Like I really do. It's not that I think this front office has done anything wrong. I think they've done a lot right, to be honest. Like I think they've hit the spots that they're supposed to hit in terms of like ticking the marks that they have to in order to like help this team succeed long term. It's just that you have to find the guy, and they haven't been able to find the guy yet. In terms of where, you know, this organization continues to look like I'm open to moving Jordan Poole. I'm open to moving Corey Kispert. I'm open to moving Marcus Smart and Middleton and, you know, Sadiq Bey and like any of these vets where like people want to make a real offer. Sure. Happy to hear it out. Right. Like, you know, if you make a real offer, I'm happy to do it. But at the end of the day, it has to make sense for us. In terms of, you know, anything else, it does feel like this thing is just, we're going to look at the non-taxpayer mid-level. We're going to look at the draft, and that's kind of where it falls for the Wizards, right?
Yeah, I kind of like what you brought. Like Middleton seems like a good vet to have in the room. I tell this story all the time about him going and kind of defending Keyshawn George when Cade Cunningham was kind of talking some trash and getting into the rookie a little bit. And you could just tell like Middleton was the veteran that came over and was like, hey, back up, leave him alone, you know, type of thing. Those people are, you know, those type of players are good to have on the roster. So I have no problem keeping Middleton on the roster, even Marcus Smart. And like you said, unless there's an offer that's just like, hey, this one really hits. And if you look at their books, I mean, they don't have a lot on the books. Like Middleton's going to come off after this year, for sure, assuming he takes the player option. Smart's coming off. Jordan Poole does have one more year. Kispert's on a really good contract, in my opinion. That's just like a player you keep around. And then, yeah, like everything else is rookie scale guys, essentially. So your books are good. Keep these vets around. I mean, I guess the one thing I would say, the Deni Avdija trade, like that would be the one thing maybe we wouldn't agree with here.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, like Deni was on an incredible contract and they got essentially like 2 first rounders for him.
And we also felt like by the time they were actually ready to compete, Deni is going to be on a bigger contract anyway. So maybe that, right? I think that was part of our conversation.
It is right. And honestly, like Deni has developed in a way in terms of like being able to play on the ball over the course of the last year that I didn't foresee at the time when Washington moved him, but it is probably a mistake that they moved him because they didn't see it. I don't think I would have moved him at the end of the day,
because that turned into Bub last year. And then what was the other first round pick what year is the other one?
It's gonna be what is it? It is let me see if I can find it. Here it is, Bub. It is a 2029 first in 2 seconds way out into the distance. So like I probably wouldn't have done that at the end of the day, but like I don't know that the value was wrong either necessarily.
It's a lottery pick, a future asset, which I brought up earlier a couple seconds. So, okay. I'm not going to crush him for it, even though like now I'm like Deni's really, really good on top. And even actually that contract still stretches out longer than what I even realized. He still has 3 years counting this upcoming year. So
yeah, I mean, can you imagine like this version of Deni with Bilal and Sarr? Like it just makes the most sense in the world. Right. But you know, maybe he doesn't develop in the way that he's developed with Washington. You just never know for whatever reason.
before we get into the like the draft pick stuff like that, is there a free agent that we just think really makes sense on the roster? Like, is there a vet that they can just say, hey, we're gonna give you the full tax MLE even if nobody else would, because we think you help our young guys be, like last year with Jonas, I understood the idea of not making Alex Sarr play the center position, right? Like that made sense in some capacity. There isn't, quite honestly, Sam. I mean, Rashawn Holmes.
Like, could you get like Clint Capella for like the biannual or something is the move, right?
Yeah, something like that. Is there somebody in the backcourt that you would want to come play? Like probably, like that's the thing is I don't know how much you want to bring in, because with the depth you have right now, I feel like you want to give these guys minutes. And with Middleton on here already, Smart, Poole, you kind of have the vets unless you're going to move one of them anyway. So I just didn't know if there's any names we thought or a position or an archetype that maybe would be interesting for them.
I mean, like, look, if I was them, I'd probably try and do the full non-tax on Steven Adams and see if he'd do it, just because like he would help Bob Carrington with his screening. He would help, Alex Sarr with his physicality. He would help them rebound. Like he'd give them a defensive backbone, which it seems like that's the way that they're kind of going in terms of how they want to develop. So it could be something like that, but that's kind of the thing to me, I guess, is, if you could find, maybe it's him, maybe it's,
so like
cheaper deal for Capella. Like, I think I'd rather, if it's not Adams, I'd rather just go like cheap on the vet center, I think.
Okay. So here's a name, restricted free agent. Like, would you throw an offer sheet at Day'Ron Sharpe just to see if Brooklyn would match or not? Cause like, that's a guy that's on the younger side. You bring him in.
Kind of works with Sarr.
Yeah, his physicality.
Rebounder.
Yeah, fits in the same mold that we're talking about here. And he's younger. So you're not just like, oh, we're just going to get this vet that lasts a year or two. He literally could be part of the core moving forward. I'm not saying you throw crazy money at him, but do you just like say, hey, let's see if Brooklyn's willing to match this when they already have $25 million tied up in Nick Claxton?
I don't mind that. Yeah, I don't mind that, honestly.
I think something like that makes sense to me. It doesn't have to be Day'Ron Sharpe. I'm a big Day'Ron Sharpe fan, so I often bring up his name in these type of conversations, but something like that would make sense to me. Can you find that age range of player that not only is a little bit established, but maybe a little underappreciated, in my opinion, that can still build out with the core as you start moving things forward?
I think that's a good name, honestly. That's a really good name to me. I mean, it probably takes 12.
Yeah.
Probably like 336, something like that.
I don't know where Brooklyn draws the line with that, like where they would not match. So, would be interesting. But that was one, especially when we're talking about, because as I look at the roster, I do think the center position is the one that jumps out the most, right? Because I mean, just looking at the starting line, you got to remember we're adding number 6, number 18 to the mix as well. So I don't know that there's a whole lot of guards or wings that are going to come in unless you're just done with some of these players and just don't plan on having them in the rotation. So
yeah, no, I agree. And I think one of the questions I have listed on our sheet, if you're watching on YouTube, is like, is Jordan Poole movable? I don't know that I want to move Poole for the amount that they would get for him, honestly. Like, I don't think they would get he's coming off of a great year, obviously, statistically. I don't know that they would get a massive haul for him at the end of the day. I think I might just rather keep him and continue to roll.
To get real value, don't you have to find a team that would think he's like their number 3 scoring option that's going to be in the starting lineup, right?
Probably.
And so I'm just not sure you're going to find that team. And because somebody isn't trading for Jordan Poole to be the third guard 6-man role at 31, 32 million, and then 34 million the next year. And so I think threading the needle of finding that team that's going to have, hey, he can come be our third scoring option in the starting lineup, and we have the defensive infrastructure around him. I mean, maybe there's teams out there. I'm sure somebody could throw in, a couple options at us, Orlando. Like we always bring up these archetype of players with Orlando, I guess. So sure. I'm just not sure that that's out there. And like I said earlier, you take Poole off this team. Who's the number one scoring option, Sam? You're now thrust. Like, do you want to throw Bilal into that role next year? Do you want to throw Bub into that role? Do you want to throw number 6 pick into that role?
Yeah.
Even though I don't always love his game, and I think I may be going back on something I said in the preseason, last offseason, I think it makes sense, at least until some of these guys develop a little bit more.
Agree. Okay, let's talk about the draft.
Sure.
In number 6, there are just a number of names we have to talk about here. Cooper and Dylan are gone.
Yep.
I think I would be fairly stunned if VJ got to 6, would be where I'm at. I would be like really, really surprised. If they wanted to move up, obviously Philly is more than, probably open for business at this point. So I think it would take some pretty real value
I was gonna say,
in order to do so.
So my guess is most Wizards fans would love if we somehow landed Ace Bailey in Washington, because based off a mock that we did where I gave them Colin Murray Boyles, and the response to that in terms of not enough ceiling after what they've gone through and then losing out in the lottery, I think the idea of still landing Ace in this draft as the quote unquote highest upside, at least perception wise, would be exciting to them. So what do you think that would take to get to number 3?
Oh, it's at least one extra first rounder. Probably a little bit more. Like, I don't think they're moving Bilal in that deal. I don't think the Sixers really would want Bub Carrington. Like,
who on the roster makes sense for Philly, right? Like that's the other thing.
Yeah.
That's where I wonder if they could lose out if another team wanted to move up, because like, can they give Philly a player that would help them?
Yeah, like I don't know if Kispert helps them enough, because like Kispert's money would line up reasonably well with like Oubre and Drummond, but I don't know if that like works enough for them. Middleton makes too much. Marcus Smart is like a tough defender, but it's a lot of money for a guy that has struggled with health, right? Like,
so then it really does just like you just got to get the draft pick.
I think it's just like a pick steal. Yeah. And maybe it's 618 and another first, honestly. Like, and that's just not like, I'm not interested in that if I'm Washington.
Yeah.
Because the part of the thing is that like you have to outbid the other teams that are trying to move up. And like, I think that 618 and an additional first is too much at the end of the day. But like, if you're Charlotte and you're moving, here's the thing. So on the Charlotte podcast, Wizards fans are probably losing their mind, right? They're like, on the Charlotte podcast, you said, to move down one spot, it was a second rounder and Andre Drummond. It's like, yes, that is right. Right. But the thing is that the Sixers then maintain the ability to continue moving down within the same tier and continue to potentially like accumulate assets
and guarantee if they have a guy they want, guarantee they still get him at 4, right? When you go to 6, there's a lot of stuff that can happen between 4, in 4 and 5 until you get on the clock again. That's out of your control now.
So I think the price tag would be bigger than what the Wizards should pay in order to move up is my answer there.
Okay. So one thing I do want to throw out, because I think if they were willing to take the Drummond contract, like we brought up on the Hornets one, does that lower the price tag a little bit? If they're willing to take some of the money off of Philly.
I think they would have to be willing to, but like, I still think that because you're moving down the 3 spots, you still probably have to do a little bit more at the end of the day. Like, so at number 6, number 18 in taking the Drummond deal, I don't know, like how much does 18 help Philly?
Yeah, no, I'm with, and I think I'm with you as well. Like if I'm Washington, this again is where the context of tiers really comes into play for me. Because while I understand Wizards fans wanting to get the upside, I'm not moving. Like, I don't like the idea of moving up to 3 in general when I have these players in a similar tier anyway. I would rather just let the board fall to me. And one of those guys is going to be VJ. We feel like there's a chance Ace could fall to 6 if that's
also my thing.
Yeah.
moving to 3, no. Moving to 4, I think would be a little bit cheaper, right? Let's say that VJ goes, 3, right? Maybe Charlotte moves up and takes VJ at 3. Now you're at 4 with Philly. Maybe you do just want to like confirm that you get Ace. Maybe the price tag at that point is only, if let's say Philly's moved off Drummond at that point, maybe it is just like 6 and 18.
I was gonna say,
something like
Drummond's already off their hands, so now 6 and 18, or like, doesn't moving Oubre also open up some more cap flexibility with that? Maybe
it does, but like if you're moving Oubre, you need to replace Oubre because like
that's true because he's actually in the rotation
some level. Yeah. Like Drummond is a guy who should not play for them at all next year and is making $5 million. So like maybe moving up to 4 is possible. And if I'm Washington, like I'm probably okay giving up 18 to get the number, like to get the guy on my board who is tops.
100%. I would, if it was only 18, I would do that, Sam. If that got me to 3, I would do that. If Philly decided they wanted that.
So like if you're Philly and you're looking at it like, okay, we've traded number 3. We've gotten off the Drummond deal. We've gotten number 6, number 33, number 18. Is that enough to move all the way down to number 6?
Yeah. I mean, again, like it's both sides of the thing for me in terms of if I'm Philly and I can just keep moving down the board, I'm okay with that because of the tiers. And I'm not worried necessarily about the upside of Ace Bailey in this tier where, like for Washington, I do understand them wanting to chase the upside of Ace Bailey in this scenario, even though it's still the same tier. So that's where I said, would I be comfortable moving 18? Like, sure, I'm okay with it now where it's just 18 and not a future first as well. Because to me, you're solely chasing upside now because you're in the same tier. So you're solely chasing the upside of what you see in a potential Ace Bailey two-way player, as opposed to, hey, Con Knippel is just going to be a really solid NBA player. You feel really good about it, whatever. And so I again would just stay at 6, I think. But I understand in the context of the Wizards, and this is where we talk about different teams' boards can look very differently when you're doing a team-specific board. I would understand that a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm just like, I think a little bit lower on Ace than some people are at the end of the day. So like, I would probably stand pat, but if they have a high grade on Ace or if they have a high grade on VJ or whoever, like I'm in favor of them moving up. If they do stay at 6, the names I like here, let's assume that VJ is gone. Let's say it's Ace Bailey, Trey Johnson, Con Knippel. One of these guys is available for sure. Yep. It's one of those 3 is like definitely available, I would think. No, it has to literally be one of those 3 is available if we're assuming VJ is gone. I mean, probably not common to me. I'm probably not going with Derek Queen. I think I can slide down the board if I want to draft Derek Queen or something like that. I mean, like, it's just not. It's got to be maybe Kasparis, but like, it's got to be one of those guys to me.
Yeah, I'm with. Like, I think it's Ace. I think Trey would be an interesting fit, but again, if you're wanting upside, like the potential as an off-ball scorer and bucket getter, I really like Trey Johnson here for what it's worth. Yeah, his mentality is like really right for this organization in terms of just like hard work, gonna put in the hours. Like this organization has really kind of made that like a real thing. I feel like. In terms of like, hey, let's make sure we bring in guys that we know are going to put in the work. Bob Carrington's like a crazy worker. AJ Johnson's like a serious worker. Like you can, I think, look at that and think that makes sense. Yeah. And in that scenario, I'd want to keep Jordan Poole for 1 year to like make sure Trey wasn't thrust into a role he wasn't ready for. Totally. I think I would go Ace, Trey, Con for the Wizards in that scenario. And to your point, Sam, one of these guys has to be on the board, and that's assuming Kasparis doesn't jump, Queen or Common or so, like somebody doesn't fall in love in the 3 to 5 range that we aren't really considering right now, which we know is possible. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's possible. So I think there's a chance. This again is why I would rather they just stay at 6 and let this fall. And
I agree.
If Khan ends up being the guy, maybe you're not as excited, but adding another solid, again, talk about floor spacing and helping guys get stuff done and
hyper competitive,
like going to compete, all of that. Like it's not the sexiest, but I'm going to walk away okay with that, I think.
I am too, personally. At number 18, any names that you're looking at?
I mean, I think I would love for one of the bigs here. So like if Thomas Sorber, I'm sure they would love that, keeping him in the area. I think that would be interesting. Queen's off the board here. Like if Essengay is still on the board here, it sounds like he's not going to be, based on like how things are trending and the positive energy he's getting. But I think I would, at 18 for them, I think I would go ahead and take a chance on that with him.
I like Sorber a lot. That's a good name. Another name I don't mind here. Like I'm not the highest on Jaeger Demon. Like I don't mind.
Yeah,
this is like an upside swing because he actually really fits with the Carrington Poole combination as guys who can really handle the ball and like be able to create shots. Like I actually think he works well with them.
Yeah, I like that. Both of us, I think this is one player we do kind of agree on and are lower than the consensus in regards to Jaeger, but this isn't too far where I have him ranked. I would be okay with that, especially if you did kind of want like, hey, if it really comes together for that kid, you can see the upside of it. So yeah, I think that's a great name for here at 18 for the Wizards.
Sorber and Danny Wolf would be another name. I really like here. Oklahoma City front office, they really value, dribble, pass, shoot guys. Well, Dawkins comes from that kind of same cloth, Alex Sarr at center. Danny Wolf is bigger. He's stronger. He's like 250 pounds. You might be able to play those guys together potentially and have enough size as like 2 7-footers out there who move a little bit better than what you expect, especially in the case of Danny Wolf, in terms of what you expect from him, at least. The Sorber name, though, is probably the name I've liked best in terms of what you've said. I really like Sorber. I would be very surprised if Derek Queen got to 18. Like I would be genuinely really surprised. I don't think I can like 1,000% rule it out right now that he doesn't get to 18. He would be top of my board if he was there, like for sure. I really like Derek Queen as a player. And I think that, there's just a lot of synergy there between him and Alex Sarr that would make sense. But, would I move up to try and get Derek Queen from 18? Like, could I use number 40 and, a couple of other picks to maybe move to like 15, 16 if he fell there? He could easily go in the lottery. Like he could go 9th, 13th, whatever it is, right? But if he was to start falling, like I might look at that real quick. Sorber is the name, though, that I love here. Sorber makes a ton of sense for everything that they look for to me.
Yep, I agree. I like that with Queen as well. I mean, I do still have Queen in my lottery in terms of my big board. And so if he did start to fall, this would be a scenario where I'd be okay moving up. Again, assuming it like just took, 40 in a future second, I'm not sure. My thing, I think where I landed on as we talked through that, I'm not looking to trade future firsts if I'm the Wizards. If I had to take both of my firsts this year to get the highest upside ceiling player, I would understand them doing that. I don't know that I'm moving future draft capital to do that on this year's draft because it's not for Cooper or Dillon. So I'm not doing that. But within this draft, especially when you look at all those names already on the roster, I would be okay with that, or taking somebody at 6 and then packaging 40 and 18 to get to 15 or 16 to get Queen. Or if you thought you had to lock in Sorber there, or, another guy we like is Cedric Coward, completely different position. What do you think about a wing for the Wizards? Adding another like rangy wing like that to this room.
Sure. Works. There's not really anything that they can't take. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think they're just taking best player available both times they're up on the board and seeing what happens. Because that's the whole value of Sarr to me, in terms of like the value he brings to the table, is he can play the 4. He can theoretically, you're hoping, play the 5 long term. His shooting would open up the court for everybody. So you might be able to fill a center next to him in a way that works effectively in some lineups. At the very least, you need a backup center at some point long-term for him, or like a rotational center who can play 25 minutes a night if he's going to play some center here and there. Wings or across the board are open. The backcourt, like, look, maybe if you take like a Trey Johnson at number 6, maybe you don't take like another scoring guard with Bub Carrington and AJ Johnson and Trey Johnson there. But, other than that, I think it'd be pretty open at that point. I think they're just drafting the best guys available.
If you take Trey at 6, you're not looking at Walter Clayton at 18 would be totally something for me, or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's right. Okay. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, got the Substack, and then the Pistons Pulse podcast. Otherwise, Game Theory podcast here with Sam Vecenie, having a blast doing these offseason previews. And we thank you guys all so much for your support of them. If you enjoyed this as a Wizards fan, or I guess even if you didn't enjoy it, but you watched the whole thing up until this point, you stayed around, tell a Wizards fans about it. Make sure that they check it out as well.
Go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. The draft guide will be out by this point. Go subscribe to the podcast feed, Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie. Go to The Athletic. Go to the YouTube channel, Game Theory Podcast with Sam Vecenie. We're nearing 50,000 subscribers at this point over there. Go hit the subscribe button. Go hit the like button. We appreciate all of you guys immensely. We will be back tomorrow with another offseason preview. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.